Okay, hello there again. Today I want to cover how to give student feedback using AI. Honestly, I think one of the most difficult things about being an educator is that feedback loop. Now, there's the stuff that we do every day, that direct interaction that we have with students. That's great information, great feedback that we can give them on the spot. But then there is how do we do our tests? How do we give like quizzes, stuff like that? Now, you can go the multiple choice route and have one written response, no written response, all those things. And I know deep down that written responses are the best way to get a gauge on how well students understand information. Now, I teach social studies. I've taught US history to seventh grade, 11th grade, world history to 10th grade, and AP human geography to ninth and 10th grade students. So if I really want to see how well do they understand the concepts, how well can they apply that cause and effect of the different aspects of whatever it is that we're learning, I always know that that written response is key. But what I've always uh, dreaded is grading them. Now, grading them alone can take a decent amount of time, especially once you start having 100, 200 students in total. And then, all right, so you've graded the assignment, but now what do you do with that? All right, do you just like, hey, you didn't do it, sucks to suck, you didn't pass. Or, hey, you did good, this is what you could improve on. Now, that's where this video is going to focus, right? How do we give that feedback to our students in a timely manner? And this is where I think AI is really going to shine and be able to help us out with giving that immediate feedback and incorporating that in our loop. So what I've got over here is now I did this in a Google form. I had a quiz. This is their written response, like their major written response question at the end of that quiz. I pulled two student responses. So student A and student B. The question is the same. So, how did government policy, economic trends, and new technologies in the 1920s contribute to the uneven distribution of wealth and ultimately the stock market crash of 1929 and the onset of the Great Depression? Students have to provide specific examples and explain the connections between these factors. I did want them to write between 3 to 5 paragraphs in length. So, in here, student one or student A did a really good job overall. I really can't knock what they came out with. I'm going to leave that up here on the side if you want to read it for a little bit. I'm going to explain over here what I did. So, this is different than my other videos. I have already gone through and entered the prompts, the material, all of that stuff, and just some things to kind of showcase what we could do. And this way, I'm not entirely guessing what's going to come next. Because again, whenever the AI generates something, I could put the same prompt in 100 times and get 100 different results. So this should be a little bit more streamlined. Now, I did use GPT 3.5. So again, this is the free version of OpenAI's ChatGPT. And I also did use the file uploader, upload file extension through Google Chrome. I have a video on that posted if you want to see what it is, how to do it. So here we go. I uploaded this document over here, and right away, the AI came out with okay, so the document's title, it consists of responses from two students, student A, student B, addressing the question about government policy, economic trends. So pretty much just kind of reiterating the question over here. It breaks down each of the students just as a short synopsis. So student A's response, they mention several causes of the Great Depression, highlight government policies favoring business corporations, tax cuts, limited regulation, led to income imbalances, increased speculation in the market, insistence on loan repayment from post-World War I contributed to the global recession. Overall, a really good response. This student pulled out a lot of different topics, even things that we had talked about in previous units. I'm really happy with what they provided. Student B, they mentioned the increased use of oil, electricity, powering factories and automobiles, growth of big business encouraged by government through tax cuts, minimal enforcement of antitrust laws. However, the reliance on credit led to rising prices and affordability issues for some consumers. They briefly mentioned the Wall Street crash and as another cause of that economic downturn. It does appear that the document explores the interconnectedness in government policies, economic trends, new technologies, uneven wealth distribution, subsequent stock market crash. Now, real quick, I'm going to give you the opportunity. If you want to pause to continue to read this response, this is the full response from this student. So if you pause the video and whenever you're done reading, just hit play. I'm going to show you student B's response. So student B, again, didn't quite hit all of the criteria. This maybe could have been broken up into 3. I don't know, maybe could have elaborated. From my own assessment of this, student A really pulled in a lot of different facets of the discussion that needs to be had when talking about this topic. Student B, I think, hit a lot of buzzwords. Shows that, hey, there's connections being made, but I'm not convinced with their understanding and grasp of the content. But that's neither here nor there. We are checking to see what the AI can do for us. So immediately, my first response was, what critiques would you give each student? And right away, this is what it did. So it provided the responses, some potential critiques. All right, so lack of specific examples. They do discuss various causes of the Great Depression. They could have provided more specific examples to support their claims. Specific instances of government policies, economic trends, and technological advancements would have strengthened their arguments. I would argue that overall, this student did really well. But yeah, they could have talked about certain laws that Congress would have passed. They could have maybe explained margin buying a little bit more, but I still feel what they did was sufficient. And the impact of the Federal Reserve's actions on the stock markets, they could have explored those things. There's always something like, hey, awesome, you're here, let's push you to that next level. Student B, limited focus on technology. If we go back to student B's again, this student definitely hit the topics, but didn't really go further and extrapolate that information to show that comprehension in that DOK 3 or 4 level of what we're looking for. And if anything, I mean, some of the stuff that the student put in there were almost verbatim copies from the class presentation. So there's a little part of me thinking hey, maybe they found their way onto the classroom slide presentations online and just said, oh, that might look good, let me throw that in there. So again, in both cases, they could have provided more specific examples and strengthen those just to strengthen them. Now, the next part is, okay, we want to know, well, what did they do well, right? So based on the provided responses, here's an assessment of how well each student responded to the question. So student A provided detailed response, covered several factors. Absolutely, they did. Highlights the impact of the policies favoring businesses, loan repayments, post-World War I, stock market speculation, credit among public. Yeah, it's a solid understanding. This student, I am convinced, understands this topic. Again, student B focuses on that role of new technologies, oil, electricity, consumer appliances. They mention the encouragement. They do briefly acknowledge rising income inequality. However, they could have explored that more in detail, and that's accurate. Again, I'll pause over here for you if you want to read in full student B's response. Okay, so now we got a little bit of the AI kind of led us into what did they do well, what could they do better. Now let's put it all into one, right? So what positive and corrective feedback would you give student A in 2 paragraphs or less? This is the first iteration of the feedback that I want to give. So It's going to start off with positive feedback for student A, and it's going to say in this like first like person my giving it, or as if I'm giving it to the student, which again you can tell it how to format it if you want to give it that personal touch, like you're giving it to the student. You absolutely can prompt the AI to make that happen, and this is kind of that. So, student A, your response to the question demonstrates a solid understanding of the factors contributed to the uneven distribution of wealth, stock market crash 1929, provide specific examples, make connections between government policies, all of these things that we've talked about. And then additionally, your reference to the stock market crash consequences further strengthens your analysis. Overall, your response shows a strong understanding of the topic and effectively addresses the question. I would put my name on that. I might tweak it a little bit, but overall, the bulk of what was just written is a accurate response to feedback I would give that student, and that saves time. Now, for the corrective feedback, your response is detailed and well supported. Consider providing even more specific examples to further strengthen your arguments. By offering specific instances of government policies, economic trends, new technologies, you can make your analysis more robust and compelling. And I mean, that's accurate. Again, there's always how can we push our students to take it that next step further? And it gets difficult whenever you are trying to give feedback to students who are already operating at a higher level. But there you go. While you touch on the stock market crash, consider delving deeper into the issues that into the causes and consequences of the crash, such as discussing the speculative practices, margin buying, and role of Federal Reserve. Now, I know the student did touch on margin buying a little bit there, so I might remove that. But I mean, I might even be able to plug in like, hey, what about margin buying could have been enhanced if I really wanted to down here. And then expanding on these aspects would enhance your analysis, provide more comprehensive understanding of the events leading to the Great Depression. So again, both of these are pretty accurate. Minor tweaks is what I would do, and then I would probably reformat it away from corrective feedback, positive feedback, or I might just leave it and obviously change the name. So let's look at B. You demonstrate good understanding of the role of new technologies in the 1920s, their impact on the economy, your mention of oil, electricity, consumer appliances. Overall, your response shows a solid grasp on the topic and effectively addresses the influence of new technologies on the economy. I do feel like this is being generous, but again, I have that background knowledge that some of this just seems like it's cut and pasted out of classroom slide presentations. Corrective feedback highlights the role of these technologies. Yes, beneficial to explore the broader impact of these advancements on wealth distribution. Consider discussing how the increased use of oil, electricity influence productivity, industrial growth, job creation. Absolutely. You briefly mentioned Wall Street crash as a cause of the economic downturn, but it would be helpful to provide more context and elaborate on the specific connections. Absolutely. This is something that I would definitely give this. I mean, if we're looking at the stock market crash of 1929, you can provide more comprehensive analysis of the question at hand. So again, you can plug and play. You know what you're looking for whenever you're looking through your student responses. This is an assignment that I did a few months back. It's officially summer break right now when I'm making this, and this was at the beginning of second semester-ish. So that's it's been a minute, but either way, definitely play around, see what you can do. This technology is really only as good as you make it. So the more detailed your requests are or your prompts, the more it can pull. Maybe you just want to look at one student at a time to prevent the AI from kind of correlating the two. Like I found that if I pulled this one all on its own, it seems to focus just on this response, and it gives a lot more in depth. But now, because I'm kind of splitting the attention or the processing of it, it's almost like it's correlating elements of this one into here, based off of the positive feedback. And I say that because it seems almost nicer. I've done this video previously, but not as a video, and the responses were completely different, or the tone of the responses were completely different between these two responses. This one, it definitely kind of held the same tone, gave a lot of the same critique and feedback. Where this one, on its own, when I plugged it into ChatGPT and asked it these questions, it was a little bit more critical. I'm speculating. I'm not entirely sure if it's because I blended the two into one document. Definitely play and see what happens. But again, using the file upload extension, it definitely makes it easier than having to copy and paste, as long as you have those files ready to go. So I feel like that's a good stop to this portion right here. If you would like to see anything else, or if you have any other questions of how else can this be used for feedback, it's really up to your imagination. But if you would like help kind of coming up with something, please leave a comment. Let's have a discussion. Let's see if anybody that watches these videos has an idea as well. I'm going to end on the note that, again, I'm probably going to say it in every video. This technology does not replace teachers. It is a tool for us to use. But again, I need to be able to come back, look at what it gave me, look at the student, and is this an accurate representation of what I think of their work? Like and subscribe if you found this somewhat helpful or a good idea, something that you might be able to use. And again, comment please if you have any ideas or questions or how to do something and you want to see a video on, like, hey, can it do this? Absolutely. Let's see what we can work out. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day and good luck.